Well, welcome everyone. It is 1 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started so that we can honor everybody's time. My name is Beth Bingham, and I'm with the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative, and we are so glad y'all are here with us today. This is our last of 4 webinars to celebrate National Healthy Homes Month, and we're excited to deliver this one today because it really reflects all that we've been talking about and the importance of creating environments where our loved ones, where our friends, where our families can be safe and healthy, especially as we are really spending more time indoors than we have in a long time between what we had to do for COVID and what a lot of folks are experiencing now with the weather conditions and with the smoke from wildfires. So perhaps now more important than ever, it is important to look at what's going on in our homes and how can we make sure that they are safe and healthy for everyone. So I just wanted to let you know we are recording this, so we will be able to share this afterwards. We'll send it out to everybody. We will post it on our website along with all of the other recordings that we've done this week. And we will also send it to everybody who's here today. Please, if you have questions that come up during the presentation, please just drop them in the chat. When Celisia is done at the end of her presenting, she will address all the questions that you have, and we can also do live questions at the end as well. And if you can also use the raised hand function, and if you would just keep yourselves on mute during the presentation to keep down on background noise, that would be great. So without further ado, I want to introduce my colleague, Celisia Rouson-Smith, who has been doing this work in healthy housing for a long time. She is a public health professional and has been leading our family advocacy services at GHHI. So she is the expert in this field. So we're thrilled that she is taking this opportunity to share her knowledge and experience with us and to be able to answer any questions you have about safe and healthy housing. So Celisia, with that, I will turn it over to you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Beth. I so appreciate the intro. Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for taking out your time this afternoon on this Thursday to join our discussion on how to improve your indoor environment in order to improve your health. And as Beth stated, my name is Celisia. I'm the director in our family advocacy services department here at GHHI. For those of you who don't know, Green and Healthy Homes Initiative, we are a nonprofit organization. We're dedicated to addressing the social determinants of health, of opportunity, and of equity through creating healthy, safe, and energy efficient homes. So today, this session, the content will be about a lot of things, but we'll really focus on how to uncover making the correct indoor environmental health choices for our families and for caregivers for us to achieve the highest health potential for our kids and our families. We'll discuss many things amongst the meaning of a healthy home, different resources, how to maintain it, and how to sustain it as well. And we'll also discuss some concrete examples to promote and engage in healthy behavior change specifically to our indoor environment. So let's get into it. All right, again, for those of you who don't know, just to give you all a background on our organization and who we are, our overall vision is to advance the social determinants of health and of racial equity through healthy housing work. Our mission is, again, we're dedicated to addressing these social determinants of health and advancing racial and health equity through creating these healthy, safe, and energy efficient homes. We do this by delivering a standard of excellence in our work. We aim to eradicate these negative health impacts of unhealthy housing and also of unjust policies for kids, for seniors, as well as families in general, in order to ensure better health, ensure better economic, as well as better social outcomes in specifically historically disinvested communities with an emphasis on communities of color. So why do we talk about healthy housing and improving these needs in order to improve our health? There is a huge need for this healthy housing investment. Over 30 million families live in unhealthy homes in our country. Just to name a few aspects, lead poisoning costs more than $43 billion annually. A couple things about lead poisoning. Primary cause is having lead-based paint in these older homes. Lead poisoning can cause learning disabilities, ADHD, lower IQ. We'll get into it a little bit more later. It can also cause behavioral issues tied to different higher crime rates, lower lifetime earnings as well. When we put an emphasis on asthma, it's a huge healthy homes concern. It costs over $81 billion annually to address. About 40% of diagnosed asthma is amongst children due to these indoor residential triggers, which we're going to go into a lot, such as mold and pests. Asthma diagnosis is actually a primary reason why kids miss school, and it also is the third leading reason why kids are hospitalized or go to the ED. Energy inefficiencies cost over $20 billion annually. There's a huge energy burden for low-income households, and it's actually 3 times higher than those that are non-low-income households. And then we also talk about fall hazards, cost over $50 billion annually. So about 30% of adults that are age 65 and up actually do fall annually, mostly indoors within the home. So housing quality is a huge matter of health as well as racial equity. Communities of color are more likely to live in these unhealthy homes that we're talking about, which causes these higher rates of these healthy home hazards. We discussed lead poisoning already, asthma, and energy insecurity. This all has a very severe economic effect that's exacerbated by the affordable housing crisis. So making these existing homes healthier is a great preventative measure and more sustainable than actually building new affordable housing. So this just gives you a background of the reason why we do what we do and why it is so important. So really, we talk about healthy home. What really is a healthy home? We say that a healthy home is one that is marked not only by the absence of health and safety threats, again, we talked about asthma, lead, et cetera, in that built environment, but also it is one that nourishes the physical, the mental, social, and environmental well-being. There's a few different definitions of the healthy home. The Federal Interagency Healthy Homes Work Group states that no housing program can be considered successful unless the residents that it services live in homes that are healthy and safe. A big partner that we have, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, as most people know, say that a healthy home is a concept that promotes safe, decent, and sanitary housing as a means to prevent disease and injury. So if any one of you want to, discuss what aspects you consider a healthy home, please feel free to put it in the chat. We would love to hear. So we discussed what a healthy home is and why, and a little bit why it's important, but let's really focus on the real reasons and talk about that. So why is this approach to these environmental services? Why is it important? So there's a huge risk for illnesses and for injuries for millions of people. We talked about over 30 million homes having these issues. So over 6 million households do live with these physical housing problems, and it puts them at risk for illnesses and injuries that can be prevented. There's also a huge high cost to society. There's millions of dollars that are lost yearly in simply just medical bills, skyrocketing energy costs, as well as lost wages that are due to these inefficient and unhealthy housing conditions. So we discussed what the healthy home is, why it's important, and now what components really are important to be able to control this environment so we can successfully achieve the goal of a healthy home. We can successfully improve our indoor environment so our health can have the highest potential. So there are 2 basic components that we really like to cover. One, eliminating or reducing those sources of health and safety hazards, asthma triggers, other type of triggers, and just avoiding that exposure. And then also knowing that environmental control truly is the cornerstone of modern asthma, education, and overall health and wellness management. One fun fact or tidbit is that Americans spend about 90% of our time indoors where the levels of pollutants can exceed those that are found outdoors. So that's one thing to carry with us through our approach in thinking about the healthy home and why it's important to address it. So in order to really break down how to successfully control one's indoor environment, we're talking about to improve our health, we'll discuss a method called the 8 elements of a green and healthy home. So these elements, just to kind of know the background, they derive from the Housing Health and Safety Rating System, which assessed about 29 housing hazards and the effect that each of these housing hazards has on a healthy and safety within that indoor environment. So we'll go through all of these elements in detail, but the 8 elements are: 1, ensuring the home is dry; 2, ensuring the home is well ventilated; 3, ensuring the home is safe; 4, ensuring the home is kept contaminant free; 5, that the home is pest free; 6, that the home is clean; 7, ensuring the home is well maintained; and 8, making the home energy efficient. So the first element, we're going to talk about keeping the home dry. Very, very important. So you can kind of see on this chart, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, which I kind of brought up before, did a survey on over 132 million homes, different housing units, during a 12-month period in the year 2011. And this survey measured housing adequacy as well as housing quality. So they found in that survey that about 11 million of those houses had interior water leaks from various different sources. You can see on that table, to name a few, from leaking pipes, from fixtures, from broken water heaters, and from other as well. Also to note, the problem was also worse for homes that were rented and those living below the poverty line as well. So just to kind of give you that, that statistic about that, water in any forms, whether it's condensation, whether it's liquid water, should not be inside the housing envelope at all, as stated through leaks, through foundation walls, through defective interior plumbing, or even through just appliances that are poorly drained. So moisture in general, again, in all of its forms, is commonly regarded as the single greatest threat to that foundation or that building structure's durability and how it performs. So it's really, really, really a big threat. It's the #1 enemy to the home, having water kind of go inside. So it causes many different health hazards. It causes property damage. If water isn't able to drain away from the property, condensation can build up under the house, causing other health issues. And too much moisture can cause different materials, such as wood, to rot and really weaken the structure of the home. So there's many different health effects, as you all can see on the chart, that moisture can truly contribute to. So some hazardous conditions are increased level of mold. It really leads to a favorable environment for pests, such as cockroaches, such as rodents, and the health effects can lead to asthma exacerbations. Another hazardous condition can be structural damage, as we talked about, rusted metal, things like that, that can lead to different injuries, physical injuries in the home. Condensation can lead to potential surfaces becoming slippery, resulting in trips and falls and hazards, especially for older adults or for children. And then also, moisture can also lead to peeling, chipping, and cracking paint, especially in these pre-1978 homes that might have lead-based paint materials built in, causing lead poisoning, especially worsened for children under 6 and pregnant women. So in order to keep the home dry, we really like to focus on different aspects when we're performing our education and our different trainings in general, to really hone in on how do we keep the moisture away and how do we keep it dry. So there's many different areas in the home that are more prone to absorbing that moisture. When we focus on the bathroom, we talk about that a lot of moisture builds up around the showers, around the tub, the sink, the walls, the ceiling, the floor in general. We know the bathroom is a huge hub for moisture. For the kitchen, another area which is a huge hub for moisture, leaky sinks, the fridges, the drain pipes, human activities in general, since we're cooking, we're eating, and things of whatnot. The attic definitely is a big area that might have moisture buildup, some leaky roofs, from moisture from below, from plumbing defects, things like sprinklers. And then the basement, we know that's a big area of potential moisture. A lot of basements are damp and wet in general, different crawl spaces in the foundation, the dirt floors, and around the windows and doors, and many other areas, broken windows, window AC units, around exterior doors, leaky pipes. So there's many different areas in the home that is susceptible to having moisture buildup, leading to unhealthy conditions for the family. Mold is something that we really like to concentrate on and really talk about. This picture that you see, kind of to the right, you'll see it's demonstrated how mold just reproduces over and over by releasing these tiny spores that kind of float through the air, and then it lands on other locations. So we might see mold in a specific area, but there really is these tiny, tiny spores that are really kind of circulating. So there are major symptoms of mold that is susceptible to happening in the home and with the family. Mold can have allergic reactions. It produces these allergens and these irritants, which again are asthma triggers and definitely can affect that asthmatic. There is sufficient evidence in general with an association between the indoor fungal exposure and then the exacerbation of asthma. And then it is definitely a huge irritation in the airways. Mold can also lead to different infections. There are inflammatory conditions as well that can be caused by mold. There are different fungal infections as well, many different ones. And then also there's toxic reactions causing different types of diseases. Of course, the worst one's death, and then they could be attached to different mold spores as well. So we talk about all the stuff about what moisture does, right? So how do we really prevent it? How are we going to prevent the mold and moisture in the home in general? So we want to make sure that we're looking at what's going on in the home, that if we see that there's an issue with the gutters and the downspouts, that we address that. We want to make sure to really maintain and repair different interior and exterior drainage systems. Dehumidification is a big one. If we know that our basement is damp, we want to ensure to have a dehumidifier running, in different seasons. We want to make sure we reduce the indoor sources of moisture through using the exhaust venting in our bathroom, using that exhaust venting in our kitchen, ensuring our dryer is vented to the outside so that moisture can kind of go outdoors and not stay circulating inside. We want to make sure to address and repair these structural defects in our walls, roofing, and foundation and plumbing when we see it. And really, when we talk about mold issues, addressing the source of the mold is very, very important, because if we kind of just wash it off or in that type of way, it will simply reappear without addressing it at its source. So in general, to kind of break it down, a dry home, we want to ensure that a dry home will prevent mold growth. It will reduce moisture, preventing a good environment for the dust mites and pests. And then it will reduce those indoor allergens as well as asthma triggers. So the second element we talk about is keeping the home well ventilated. And you'll see this kind of ties into keeping it dry as well. So a well-ventilated home is free of combustion contaminants. An example is using the oven as a heater. It's free of that environmental tobacco smoke, secondhand smoke, third-hand smoke as well. It's free of particulate matter, which is pretty much, dust, free of mold allergens, moisture, as well as volatile organic compounds, which we'll discuss a little bit. And there's a few different ways to ventilate, and we like to discuss mechanical ventilation, spot ventilation, as well as natural ventilation. And just to break it down, what ventilation really is, it's really just the replacement and the exchange of stale inside air with kind of fresh outside air. And what it does, it will dilute or it will remove contaminants, which reduces those harmful effects of those contaminants. Ventilation will improve and maintain that respiratory health in the home, and then it'll supply that fresh air to reduce the concentration of those contaminants as well. So basically, with mechanical ventilation, it's very intentional. It's that air conditioner, that furnace, that air purifier. It provides that controlled ventilation throughout the home, and then it will remove those pollutants, that moisture, that odor, that stale air, and those volatile organic compounds. With spot ventilation, it's very localized. So think about your kitchen exhaust fan, your bathroom exhaust fan to remove those pollutants. It's very efficient measure to reduce the moisture, as we talked about the bathroom and the kitchen. And then natural ventilation, of course, natural ventilation is uncontrolled, it's unpredictable air movement. It'll get through, you open the windows, that's natural ventilation. It comes through the cracks, comes through holes in the structure of the home. It'll go through the vents as well. And it pretty much is the traditional method, allowing that fresh outdoor air to replace that indoor air. So there's many sources of these indoor air pollutants as well. Some of the most prevalent sources consist of combustion appliances, not maintaining those appliances. You can kind of see that picture up to the right where that dryer vent is cracked and rusted. Other sources are high moisture. We talked about, again, with keeping it dry, water intrusion, plumbing leaks, human activities. Other sources of these pollutants are the cooking process. When we're cooking, we burn organic matter during these using high temperatures. So that's one reason why having a kitchen vent is very important, or natural ventilation in the kitchen. And then consumer products. We talked about volatile organic compounds, which are toxins that are in a lot of the material we use, whether it's building material, paint, certain hairsprays, certain disinfectants, and air fresheners as well. So another chart just to kind of show you all the contaminants versus the health outcomes of certain sources. Carbon monoxide is definitely considered a combustion contaminant, and the health outcomes of possible health outcomes are chronic and acute, different diseases, fatigue, headaches, dizziness, as well as the worst of carbon monoxide poisoning. Particulate matter, we talked about dust, another pollutant that is possible. Irritation of airways, coughing, shortness of breath, which really kind of spells out a lot of asthmatic or respiratory triggers. And then we talk about moisture or mold, again, on this element of a healthy home with asthma triggers, toxic effects, and infections. And then those volatile organic compounds, which do have eye, nose, throat, ear irritation, asthma triggers, as well as an increased risk of cancer. So with keeping the home well ventilated, we really want to make sure when we focus on ensuring that the home has its best ventilation as possible, replacing our defective combustion appliances, cleaning, tuning, ensuring that these appliances are maintained and that filters are changed on time is very important. Ensuring that the car vented to the outside, and then ensuring that we can use natural ventilation as much as possible. So the third element is keeping the home contaminant free. So you'll see this ties a lot into our last element of keeping the home well ventilated. So keeping the home contaminant free is really important. There's a couple important contaminants we want to discuss today: lead-based paint in pre-1978 homes, asbestos in aging building materials, organic compounds, and paint in homes that were built before 1978. There was a ban on it after that, so we really focus on that 1978 number. This really results in fine lead dust produced when the paint breaks down. And I stated it before, but we really concentrate on children that are 6 and under, and also pregnant women, as they are more likely to absorb the lead in their environment. So if you ask the question, how do you know if there's a potential of a lead paint hazard in a home? With a little information, you really can assess the presence. Of course, I stated, check out the age of the structure of the building. If it's built before 1978, it's possible. If there's a presence of chipping paint, that first picture, you can kind of see that chipping, peeling away in the white right there. if it looks kind of like alligator skin, if it looks like it's peeling, if you see a presence of dust accumulation kind of on your floors, on your windows, on the sills and whatnot, kind of around that, along with that, as well as areas of friction around the door frames and the windows. With asbestos, it's a naturally occurring mineral. It's formed, you can see it in this picture right here. It's formed pretty much with a bunch of small curled fibers, like white fibers like that. When it's airborne, asbestos really can do damage to the lungs and have a wide range of different health impacts associated with, lung cancer, COP of the sorts. And then when we look at VOCs, volatile organic compounds, those are really released through, as I kind of stated, through many different products that we use. Disinfectants, for example, the disinfectant wipes that we use, might have VOCs. There's a brand called Wet Ones where they have nearly 1,300 milligrams of volatile organic compounds expelled in just using 4 wipes. So that's kind of something to pay attention to if one has an asthma diagnosis in the home or a respiratory issue. So this slide right here is going to show you how lead can affect the children's health. So there's many different areas, and we won't have to go through all of them right now, but you can see that lead can affect a child in almost every aspect of their body. Through their brain, again, we talked about ADHD, different damaged nerves, through their hormones, through their stomach, also through their reproductive system. It can also affect the heart with even high blood pressure. It can affect the blood as well as the kidneys and as well as the bones with just simple, growth and development. There's other sources of lead too. I know we talked specifically about lead-based paint. Other sources can be water, lead in service lines and plumbing fixtures. It can be soil, kind of around the outside soil and near the roads. And then there's other as well. It could be possibly, we talked about lead dust, so it can be on clothes and shoes, depending on, if that parent has a certain type of job that they're working around that. It can technically be in certain personal products, but like we said, the lead-based paint was banned in 1978, but it is always great to know about it to kind of be able to vet possible sources. So this slide just shows how VOCs can be exposed and in different health effects as well. So we discussed it a little bit, but VOCs can definitely result in asthma attacks, itchy eyes, sneezing and runny nose and headaches. And then if it's long-term, kidney damage and elevated blood pressure. So this chart kind of just sum everything up. We'll talk about different health outcomes when exposed to these hazards. So again, to reiterate, lead-based paint can really have an effect on learning disabilities, a risk for cardiovascular disease. Asbestos can have an effect with chronic health outcomes such as lung cancer, mesothelioma, and asbestosis. VOCs, again, those emitted gases in a lot of those consumer products that we use can have an increased risk of cancer and different irritations with asthma triggers, as well as radon can have different chronic health outcomes that are cancer causing. So radon control. So we talk about how do we control all these things, right? How do we really keep it contaminant free? With radon, if your home is found to have elevated radon levels, it's really important to hire a professional who is trained to mitigate the problem. There's not much that you can kind of do individually, but really if that is found through an assessment, it's definitely a professional's work. With the VOC source control, it's really important to make sure that you remove any unused chemicals from the home. You make sure that you use alternative or low VOC products, as well as increasing the ventilation. Again, keeping it well ventilated really helps with that air exchange. And then keeping your temperature and your relative humidity as low as possible in the home. For lead control, one thing to know is that lead poisoning is 100% preventable. So lead testing is really big. Want to make sure all children are tested. We want to reduce tracking from the outdoors You want to be able to reduce that lead dust ingestion that's possible for, little kids or toddlers or babies from swallowing. Improving nutrition is a very big way to control as well. Doing lead specific cleaning, as well as abatement and remediation of lead hazards in homes. And then when we talk about asbestos, it's super important to know if you see that those curly fibers underneath the towel or on appliances, that you do not disturb it yourself. It really can release these fibers throughout the home, and then that's not great for the family's health. So any asbestos work should be performed by a licensed specialist. So the fourth element that we'll focus on is keeping the home safe. So in general, one thing to note that injury is a huge leading cause of death and disability with children and older adults. So over 1.5 million of older adults are treated in the emergency department for unintentional fall-related injuries. Over 400,000 residences do have fires per year, and it results in close to $7 billion in property damage, and even worse, 3,000 deaths. So this kind of just shows how important it is to focus on keeping the home safe. So there are a few common areas in the home. Again, a lot of this is real full circle. We talked about keeping the home dry. So high moisture, bathroom, kitchen, and basement. Heat or flames can happen in many rooms, the bathrooms, the kitchens, near electrical deficiencies, water heaters, toxic substances underneath the kitchen sink, in the basement, in the medicine cabinet, in the garage, anywhere that these toxins and medicines are stored. There's a potential of falling in many places, on stairs, slippery, irregular floors, from high windows in general, from unprotected elevated places in the home. And then there's a huge potential for injury when you have things like protruding objects, maybe nails coming out of windows, or, tipping furniture, tipping appliances, different elements that can fall, low-bearing structures, as well as strangle hazards for children. So these pictures will kind of just show some structures and areas in the home. These are real pictures that we've had in different homes that you can see there's a potential for falling right here where there's no barrier. There's these in the sidewalk leading to go in the home. There's a trip hazard. And then this is a child kind of reaching for the stove for a stove that's a little bit shaky. So when we talk about different elements of keeping it safe and how do we reduce these indoor safety hazards? One, we can talk about fire and gas safety. So really ensuring that there's a presence of these smoke and these carbon monoxide alarms. Again, full circle, we've already talked about using these in our other elements. So with smoke detectors, we want to make sure there's one on each floor and they're outside of the bedroom. We, of course, provide them in many of our service programs. Also, the local fire department can provide them as well. Carbon monoxide detectors, we really want to make sure that there's one outside of each bedroom area and one always on the main level of the house. We want to make sure that we look at fire exit safety. Are there fire exits available? Are they functional? Does the family have a fire escape plan? Does the family know what to do if there's a potential fire? So we all want to focus on that and all of the exits. We want to focus on fall prevention, addressing these unsafe doors, these unsafe windows, ensuring that if there are holes, if there are handrails, if there are stairs that are kind of unsafe, addressing them. If there are worn out floors and surfaces, if there are worn out carpets, if there are cables, running across the floor that can cause these trip and fall hazards, look at that and address that. We want to look at chemical safety, storing in a child-proof cabinet, if there's anything with caution or warning or danger, we want to make sure that that is kept away from the child. One thing to kind of look at, if you want to, kind of see, is this a hazard in my home? There's a method, we call it the deficiency to hazard to likelihood to outcome method, which really will analyze if there's a safety issue. So you can ask yourself, is there a deficiency? Is this a hazard? And what is the likelihood of the danger occurring? And then what is the likely outcome? So now we're on to keeping the home pest free. So we know, I don't know if anyone really likes having pests in their home. We know it's super important to kind of look at and analyze when it comes to ensuring that our health is the highest potential possible. So why do we do that? We know pests can carry over 200 human pathogens. I mean, to name a few, the plague, salmonellosis, rabies, many other things. Cockroach, rats, and droppings have a lot of different triggers. Each pellet from a cockroach contains 500 units of allergens and enough to trigger over 60 asthma exacerbations. So that's the reason why it's very important to address these pest issues if they are in your home. So some kind of notes about preventing pests are removing water and food sources. So if you have, dogs and cats that, some people do leave their food out all day, it's really important to address that, not have the water out, not have the food source out all the time if there is a certain pest issue. Sealing holes and sealing cracks in the structure of the home so they can't get in. Eliminating harborage areas, which is, ensuring there's not too much clutter, not too much, areas where that animal can create a home and kind of hide away. And then it's important to know to not use sprays or bombs, especially as the first option. We know it's not as healthy, especially if we're talking about asthmatics and other chronic diseases. We want to make sure to use a method first that is called integrated pest management. And with integrated pest management, it really is the healthiest way to ensure that you're still getting rid of the pests in your home, but you're not affecting your health by using a lot of different toxins and pesticides. So IPM is used, we really use it to keep the pets out with no place to hide. So really changing the surrounding landscape, changing that environment, blocking these pest entries and passages and these hiding places. You can see in this first picture, there's a building a metal sheet on the bottom of the door in order to block, create that blocking passages. Reducing the food availability. Again, we talked about, not leaving food out for some of our pets. Practicing proper food storage and proper food disposal. Not leaving dishes in the sink overnight after cooking, cleaning up right away. Cleaning up our crumbs, our grease, and our spills and things on the counter will just help tremendously with reducing that availability for the pests. And knocking down the population by using different glue traps, stuff like this, maybe even dry ice, which helps, kind of suffocate that pest in that way. And then using something called insect growth regulators is another option, which is pretty much like birth control for mice and rats. And then using these targeted pesticides, as you can see right here in this picture, only when very, very so needed. So the sixth element, keep it clean, a lot has to do with the other elements, of course, keeping it pest free. So keeping it clean is one of our number one education pieces that we talk to when we provide information for our Healthy Homes programs and our asthma care management programs. There's a lot of benefits to having a clean home. It really controls that source of house dust, of those particulate matters. It eliminates that food and water source for pests. It prevents asthma attacks. It prevents different household injuries, toxin exposure, which has a high, potential to lead to illnesses. It reduces clutter and those harborage for pests as well. So just some efficient ways that a lot of us do practice, but that we can be reminded on for keeping our home as clean as possible for our health. You can ask people to remove their shoes as soon as they enter the house, and definitely wipe their feet on the doormat before walking through. Again, keeping the tables and the counters free of crumbs and free of spills, ensuring that the bathrooms in the kitchen are cleaned at least once every week. Ensuring that the dishes on the countertops that we're cooking with are put away and cleaned right away. And then also covering our mattress and our pillowcases with dustproof and zippered covers. So we love to educate and talk about green cleaning here at Green and Healthy Homes Initiative, because it really is such an efficient way to ensure our health is at as high as potential. So green cleaning products are definitely safer, not just for you, but also for the environment on top of the health. So looking for products when we're shopping with ingredients that are non-toxic, that are biodegradable, that are free from dyes and fragrances and whatnot. And we can buy these in the store, which are great, but we can also make our own products with common household items as well. Green cleaning, it can be less expensive and just as effective as typical cleaning. So this picture depicts, this is kind of just, a homemade cleaning spray that can be made at home using white distilled vinegar, water, some packed citrus peels for a good smell, and also some unscented liquid Castile soap. And there's many different green cleaning options. We have different trainings and seminars on it here. So we talk about how to individually clean different parts of the home and different rooms in the best way possible. The seventh element that we'll discuss of a healthy home is keeping the home well maintained. So with this one, it really is just having routine inspections, having routine cleaning, kind of having a plan, and then repairs. So this can address minor problems before they just become larger problems and out of control. So really just knowledge, knowing when's the last time the heating and the ventilation or the HVAC filters were changed. Looking for these holes and gaps outside and inside that need to be filled, ensuring that the gutters are kept clear. Just little things that we can just continue to remind ourselves, have our own schedule on it to ensure that the home is well maintained, as less potential for injuries. And then the eighth element is making the home energy efficient. So with energy efficiency, there are many sources for energy loss within the home. And just to name a few, having inefficient appliances and inefficient lighting, having some insufficient insulation, having uncontrolled air infiltration, which means kind of leaky windows, leaky doors, cracks kind of around the surfaces, having missing hot water heater tanks or pipe insulation, as well as poor weather stripping. So the goals really of energy efficiency is to use reduced amounts of energy and reduce amounts of resources and water. So with energy efficiency, it includes, we talked about insulation a little bit, so insulation, air sealing, ensuring that there are weather stripping around the doors and windows, ensuring that the windows are efficient as well. So maintaining efficient heating and cooling system ensures that there's proper airflow, there's proper temperature distribution throughout the home, and the hot water system is also efficient as well. So just leaving you all with this question, what ways have you promoted healthy behavior changes in your home? So it's just something to think about after we kind of went through, the different elements of how to ensure that we can improve our own health, our own house to improve our health. Just, would like for you to ask yourselves that question, what do we do and what could we do to even be better? And I thank you all so much for listening. I'm going to hand it back over to Beth. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Celisia. That was super helpful and really good information, really great for the folks that you all serve. If you're working in the field like we are, it sounds basic sometimes, but not everybody has this information, and it makes a world of difference. We know in our clients, the folks that Celisia and her colleagues go and visit in the field, just providing this basic information really does make a world of difference in people's health outcomes in their homes. So we would love to know if you have questions. I didn't see any in the chat. But if you would like to just raise your hand or just unmute yourself and ask a question, we've got a few minutes and Celisia would be happy to answer anything you might have. So please feel free. And if not, we do have loads of information on our website as well. So feel free to go to ghhi.org and there's a section on the 8 elements of a healthy home. And it looks like Cynthia has a question. Cynthia, feel free, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away.
Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Oh, great. I would just like to, this is Cynthia Knowles from San Mateo County Environmental Health Pollution Prevention Team, and I would just like to expand a little bit on the topic of mold spores and the topic of ventilation. I think on the presentation, it said you could eliminate or at least get rid of the mold spores by ventilating, and I think it's important to expand on how mold spores enter, because they're a part of the exterior or natural environment or exterior. So I think it's important to recognize that mold spores are entering when we open the door. So ventilating isn't necessarily, I just want to know what you thought about that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah. So the mold piece that we discussed on, on this PowerPoint, of course, is very short, but with mold, I was really saying that that it's not enough to just ventilate or to just clean with, soap and water, that you have to actually attack the source, which is attacking the foundation, in order to truly get rid of the wall. And I do know that on the, in order to truly get rid of the mold, having to, really attack the source, which is the foundation and the drywall and whatnot. I know that the EPA does state, as far as with mold removal, that one can really only address it themselves if it's 10 square feet or less with, that. So anything with mold, we really do leave it up to professional experts as far as for getting rid of it. So we don't encourage our clients to try to clean mold themselves in general. But no, I agree, with you as far as the mold spores, like you said, we're exposed to it in general. But that's kind of how we educate. We do not, we do not tell them to get rid of mold themselves, but we just kind of give them the, try to find the resources through our services, through our funding to get rid of that.
Oh, yes, and you do an excellent job. I think I was looking for some more discussion on the spores themselves, and because I do tell when I speak to families, it's very, you can't really eliminate spores. So.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Great. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, I don't see any other hands raised. Celisia's contact information is right there on the screen. So feel free to email her if you come up with questions later, or just would like some additional information. If you're in the Baltimore area or in some of the other areas where we work, Memphis, Detroit, Philadelphia, Trenton, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, any of those places or others, please be in touch if there's anything we can do to help you with your programs or with materials and information for the folks that you serve. Celisia, thank you so much. Really, really great presentation, so helpful. And we are going to give you back 10 minutes of your day, everybody. So enjoy, have a lovely long weekend, and take good care.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.